talked about the intelligence of things and how devices were taking advantage of all this information. So historically, the information existed, but these devices weren't necessarily capturing it. And so we've started to capture that information in a very systematic way and take advantage of it. So we had things like the AT&T Vitality cap, which goes on just a regular old pill bottle that was launched at last year's CES. It allows one to track when that pill bottle is open. It then can also alert users, whether it be medical professionals, families, neighbors, if that medical bottle isn't open or if it is open. And so medical professionals or loved ones can monitor if somebody is, for example, taking their medications or if they're taking them on time. And then go back and review that information. It can send you a text alert or call you and let you know that you haven't taken your medications and that you should take your medication. So all of that information existed before, but we weren't capturing when someone was opening the pill bottle. We weren't doing anything with that information. What some of these sensors are allowing us to do, and ultimately building in this intelligence, is allow us to take advantage and leverage that information. I mentioned the sensorization of things. We had things like the Connect, and then ultimately CrimeSense licensing that technology out to others who were using it. We had the Recon ski goggles, which look like traditional ski goggles, but have built in them a plethora of sensors. So they have a pressure sensor, they have a GPS together that can create an altimeter, tell you how high you are, tell you how fast you're going. It has a little bit of memory on board, so it records every ski run you take when you're out skiing. Tells you how fast you're going, captures average speed. You can then download that and use that information. Again, that information existed but wasn't necessarily being captured in the past. And then the amplification of things. We saw a variety of devices launch that coupled apps, this smartphone/tablet hub device together with another piece of hardware. So you have, for example, Withings blood pressure monitor, allows you to monitor your blood pressure together with an app in your smartphone. You had Griffin's Beacon device, which would take your IR transmitter receiver for your AV gear and turn it into Wi-Fi so you can control that elsewhere in the home without line of sight. Devices like that we saw launch, taking together that app ecosystem with additional hardware and leveraging the hub that was starting to show up within households. Of course, last year we had Ford's first electric vehicle launch. Ford launched their all-electric Ford Focus at CES. And then we started to also see wireless audio show up in the form of AirPlay devices. And that's a trend that will continue as we head to 2012. So that's a look back. Now what I want to do is spend a minute and take a look forward at some of the themes that I think will play out over the next few days. We spent the last decade going through what I would consider a very large digital transition. While all the focus has been on the digital transition as it relates to television, we've gone through a much broader digital transition. We transitioned from analog cameras to digital cameras, from analog tape devices like portable tape players and VCRs to digital devices like DVD players and ultimately Blu-ray players and MP3 players on the audio side and as well on the video side. So we've gone through this very broad digital transition. I think we are now entering the second phase, the second 10 years of that digital transition, where we'll start to leverage all of these digital devices, and that will be the focus of to me, the true innovation that we'll see come out of CES over the next decade. So the average household today in the US has about 25 consumer electronics products. The next big step in that digital transition is taking advantage of those devices. Before I jump into 3 trends that I think will have an influence on CES this year, I want to talk just briefly about what CES buyers are looking at when they come to the show. We surveyed a few months ago CES buyers in anticipation of CES and some of the things that they were looking for. I think this gives you good insights of what the retail environment is looking for when they come to CES next week. And that might be a little bit difficult. We'll make sure that you receive copies of the slides. I know if you're all the way in the back, it's going to be tough to see. We asked them what they thought the hottest trends were going to be. Moving from your left to your right, we see wireless and wireless devices showing up as the area where they think they'll see the hottest trends coming out of CES, followed by lifestyle electronics, internet-based multimedia services, and the list goes on. I think those were all things that will play out over the next couple of days. You'll see them evident in the trends that I'm going to talk about. And again, as I mentioned, we'll ensure that you get a copy of this presentation so you can review this in more detail.
Wow.
We need an application for that.
I guess technically this is on the web, so you could follow me at the same time. We asked CES where they thought some of the hot things coming out of CES would be. Just working down the list: apps, tablets, devices for streaming content, internet-enabled TVs, all things that I'll talk about. Let me now jump into the three trends I see playing out over CES. The first is what I refer to as a morphing of computing. So as a subtitle, I've said the computer's dead, all hail computing. And what we're getting at here is this idea that there's a friction starting to emerge between wanting to pull computing power out of devices while at the same time pushing computing into multiple historically non-core computing devices. And so that's something that I think will be quite evident over the next few days. You're going to see computing coming out of these devices. At the same time, we're seeing more computing going into a myriad of devices. The smart TV is a great example. We've had 50 plus years of television, and now it's increasingly behaving like a computer. We're building in a little bit of computing power, we're letting it run apps, we're giving it capability of a browser, and so that device is evolving, and it's evolving quite rapidly. While the television market is in the US is a declining market in terms of unit and revenue, internet TVs have done phenomenally well over the last 2 years. In 2010, they represented about 12% of total unit volume. That moved up significantly in 2011, and by 2012, we expect nearly half of all televisions shipping will be able to connect to the internet. So that's a pretty phenomenal growth rate over 2 years. Over the next 4 days, we're going to see a plethora of phones launch. Again, here's an example where we're building in more computing power. The key story here over the next couple of years is the introduction of quad-core phones, of 4G phones, really making these pocketable devices more and more like full-fledged computers. And here you see it, the crossroads. We've got devices like Ultrabooks. A few months ago, I mentioned that I expected to see 30 to 50 Ultrabooks launch at CES. That looks like that number will come to fruition. We should see 30 to 50 Ultrabooks launch. Tablets, I expect to see 50 plus tablets launch again this year, new devices, new concepts in the tablet space. And those are both examples where the focus isn't on the computing power. Their focus is on other elements of that experience. So again, I read a lot in the media about, does this device fit into this broader ecosystem of products? Does it cannibalize? Does it help grow the number? But to me, the key is, again, what is it scaling? What are the feature sets that it's scaling? If you look at the Ultrabook, you're seeing devices with solid-state drives. You're seeing a design element that's important to a segment of consumers, as opposed to, you're seeing typically a smaller screen size. You're seeing devices that are leaving out a large number of ports or leaving out optical disk drives and scaling other aspects of that computer experience. Tablets, of course, largely not focused on power per se, but focused on scaling a different attribute. And so you're seeing these devices. You've got Google's Chromebook, for example, where the focus isn't on the computing power. So traditional computing devices that aren't focused on the computing power. to me, the story with computing and the story broadly with device launches